You want to talk about Chinese peasants? What about the American peasants? The rich got richer. They got richer in an astronomical level that is not even easy to comprehend. Like, let's see, Jeff Bezos, net worth over time. Do we have a graph here?
We seek minds to make our
Wow,
own.
look at that.
The fleet embraces
Wow,
new vessels.
wow, look, oh, wow, look at these numbers. Those are really good numbers. So yeah, in just 2 years, exactly. And so this is the, now show the evolution of taxes for the extremely wealthy. Right, and so tax rates, I think I know this, but I can't fully say that I understand this. My understanding is that tax rates for very wealthy people, like, you know, go back like 70, 80, 100 years ago, were actually higher than they are now. But I'm not sure if I'm educated enough. I don't want to stand on that, but that's what I've heard. And so billionaires don't pay taxes. In a lot of cases, they don't. Just the 50s? Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's true, too. Can you show the productivity wage gap? Yes. This is the sick one. You guys ready? Disconnect between productivity and a typical worker's compensation. And keep in mind, this is stopping at 2017. This is why people want to burn down the system. This is the reason. And as somebody, I am a top 1% earner. I pay over $1 million in taxes every single year. In fact, I'm due for that pretty soon. And I totally understand it. And I will be massively negatively impacted by this. I will probably lose collectively over the course of this happening. I will probably lose millions of dollars. That's what will happen. It's just the way it is. But I can totally understand it. You got to understand it. You need deductions. I deducted a 6-figure amount of money, and I still had to pay that much.
We await the Unity's command.
So, yeah, it's a lot. You probably lost millions today. Not quite. I don't have that much money, okay? But, you know, maybe at some point. Hey, has been a $1 million vote for? Well, all I'm saying is, like, my point is that a lot of these people, as I said, these are the people messaging, oh, Luigi, you know, haha, let's meme about Luigi. Well, now they're losing money, and so now it's serious. Yeah, you were fine with somebody else's dad getting shot in the back of the head, but whenever you lose 3% on your portfolio, suddenly now the world has to change. And won't somebody think of the companies? Anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. Do you guys see, after you look at these graphs and this data, the reason why Americans want to burn down the system? Do you see as clear as fucking day? It's so obvious. Ponder the graph. Look at the graphs. Wall Street is smart. They knew this was coming. Some large hedge fund probably put out options in a market to crash and probably still made tons of money. Yeah, I'd do the same thing if I were them.
We seek minds
jobs in the United States of America. For 40 years, we have gone down that pathway. We've seen closing factories. We've seen rising inflation.
J.D. Vance mentions 40 years. 1975.
Planet item ready.
Well. Pretty accurate, huh? Imagine that. It's exactly 50. Yep, pretty close.
We've seen the cost of housing so high that most Americans can't afford to buy a home right now. President Trump is taking this economy in a different direction. He ran.
That's another thing. But the graph, I can't afford a house. They don't care about a graph. They care about a house.
Civilian structure complete.
It's, again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. How can you expect somebody to understand abstract economics when they can't understand where they're living?
And on that, he promised it, and now he's delivering. And yes, this is a big change. I'm not going to shy away from it, but we needed a big change, Lawrence. We cannot keep going down the Joe Biden globalist pathway where we have...
Yep, exactly. And it will hurt, by the way. And it will fuck up the economy in the short term. I think it will. And you know what's crazy? Is that it might even fuck up the economy in the long term and cause a Great Depression. But if I had to guess, I think most of the people that voted for Trump are willing to take that risk. And I think that the gains in the upper 1% that have happened year after year after year have been relying on people's fear of that risk. And the moment that people are not afraid of that anymore, that's when this shit happens. Not afraid anymore? Yeah, exactly. And why are people not afraid anymore? The reason why they're not afraid anymore is because society has taken away a person's right to dignity. A person no longer has the right to dignity. They can't afford a nice house. They can't afford a nice car. They can't take care of themselves. They can't afford to live in a way that they feel like is authentic to themselves. And that's it. Second Civil War is coming. It's not a civil war. It's just that this is just economics, right? There will be an uprising. Well, this is the uprising. Like they basically people voted for Trump to be the executioner, and he is executing. Like it or not.
$2 trillion of peacetime debt and deficits. We have manufacturing disappearing. That is not working for Americans. We've got to take this country in a different direction.
Mr. Vice President, there does seem to be a disconnect. You see Wall Street in the media and the markets, and they're freaking out right now.
Yep.
But then I look at those.
They have a vested interest in it. That's the reason why. That's why they're freaking out. It's because they have a vested interest in it. They care about money. Of course, the people that are losing money are going to be upset. Duh.
Mining upgrade
Workers that were in the Rose Garden yesterday, and they're celebrating. I think about all the diners that I've done across the country, and all these businesses saying we've lost manufacturing here, and they're celebrating the move. What is the disconnect between the market and the people, those workers that are cheering this on right now?
Well, I think on one hand, frankly, a lot of people have gotten rich from American jobs moving overseas, but American workers.
I'm going to be honest. If J.D. Vance runs in 2028, I'm going to vote for him. I am. I'm going to vote for him. I didn't vote for Trump. I'll vote for Vance. Mainly because he has a beard, and I feel like we really need to bring those back. But also, some of his policies I agree with, too.
Have not gotten rich, and frankly, American companies have not gotten wealthy from the increasing growth of foreign competitors manufacturing overseas. They, as the president says, Lawrence, these foreign companies, they charge us ridiculous tariffs. They engage in a lot of non-tariff practices like currency manipulation. That has been awful for Main Street in the United States of America. It's meant those diners, their customers, don't have jobs anymore. It meant those great steel mills, those great auto plants have closed down and their workers have been laid off. What I saw yesterday in the Rose Garden was incredible enthusiasm, because a lot of those workers, they've been working hard for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Young and old were in the Rose Garden yesterday. They've never had a president who stood up for their jobs and stood up for American prosperity. They finally see something has shifted. There were Democrats out there, Republicans. There were union and non-union.
Yeah, this is the thing, is that those working class people are only represented by probably a single-digit number of politicians. Bernie Sanders was one of them. And I think he is still one of them as well. But it's a very, very, very minor amount.
commerce upgrade
Union workers alike, they know this is a big change, but we need a big change in this country, because what we've done, what we did under the Biden administration, it just wasn't working.
So, Mr. Vice President, I know a lot of MAGA folks, a lot of Americans that are cheering the president on, especially when he takes it to other countries.
Sure.
They feel like we've been screwed for a long time.
Yep.
But I also know people that come from our background.
Yeah, because again, I mean, and you see, this is basically tax the rich too, because they have most of the money in the stock market. Like, rich people will be the most disproportionately negatively affected by this financially. Now, there's a chance that that negative effect that rich people feel will have like a trickle-down effect that will negatively affect the average people, but that remains to be seen.
They're living paycheck to paycheck.
Of course.
And they want to do the patriotic duty of taking it to these other countries, but it's going to hit them a little bit. They feel. What can you tell the American people that they just can't afford an extra $3 here and there about
That's a
the
good question.
government making up the difference from that? Will costs go up at some point? Will this just be temporary? Are we talking 3 months or 6 months?
Well, we certainly hear, and I appreciate, how I grew up.
I know.
I grew up in a family that often did live paycheck to paycheck, and we know a lot of Americans are worried. So we are fighting very hard to bring prices down. We're going to have the biggest deregulation in the history of this country. We're doing a lot of things and already have done a lot of things to lower the cost of energy. You heard the president mention this yesterday. Eggs, when we came in, were at a 10-year high, and all of a sudden they've dropped 60% just in the 2 months of the Trump administration. What I'd ask folks to appreciate here is that we are not going to fix things overnight.
Yeah.
Joe Biden left us, this is not an exaggeration, Lawrence, with the largest
The
piece.
main concern that I have, honestly, is that unless they elect somebody to carry on this policy after Trump, like all memes aside, I don't think Trump is going to run for a third term, although it would be really funny if he did. It'd be great content for me. I don't think he will, and I honestly don't think he should. But if they don't have somebody to follow this up, I think it could be bad. Because this is a 10-year and like a 20 and 30-year plan. And like you really can't speed run this plan in 4 years. I think that logistically, that's one of their biggest weaknesses right now.
Time debt and deficit in the history of the United States of America with sky-high interest rates. You don't fix that stuff overnight. We know people are struggling. We're fighting as quickly as we can to fix what was left to us, but it's not going to happen immediately. But we really do believe that if we pursue the right...
So this is really stretching it now? Is it a 20-year plan now? Yeah, I think it is. I think it's about a 20-year plan as... So, and we're seeing this also, like, here's another good example. This is something I just noticed recently. So Austin is now doing autonomous vehicle rides. I might sound crazy, but just listen. In 30 to 50 years, it will be illegal to drive your car on a public road. I don't think people realize the shift that we're going into. It might be less than that.
Deregulation, we pursue those energy cost-reducing policies. Yes, people are going to see it in their pocketbook. They're also going to benefit from the fact that foreign countries can't take advantage of us anymore. That means their jobs are going to be more secure.
I don't think you can talk about this, the tariffs, and not talk about the tax cuts as well that we're expecting. Is this to offset some of the cuts that we
obviously
plan on expecting? Will this be a permanent measure, or are we thinking when it comes to the scoring of this bill, we're going to be able to get cuts as a result of this?
I wouldn't think of tax cuts as a way to offset the tariffs. Here's the way that I think about it is, again, for 40 years, we've had an economy that rewards people who ship American jobs overseas and raises tax.
Again, this is the graph. This is just the graph. This is the graph, and this is what the numbers is. These is the numbers.
Taxes on American workers, and we're flipping that on its head. We're going to cut taxes for American workers and for American companies that build here. We're going to make it harder to ship American jobs overseas.
Yeah, it's really important that we get manufacturing in the U.S. as soon as possible. That way we can have as much control over it whenever things shift to being automated.
Mining upgrade.
And you're going to see more automation and technology that way. We have to do this like as soon as possible. And you see, like, I mean, you see how much money China is investing into AI. That's really smart. We should be doing the same thing. Why is this hard to understand? It's hard to understand because it's scary for somebody to wake up and look at their portfolio and see that they lost a bunch of money. And there's a chance that all of these tariffs and everything about this can totally backfire, and we could go into a Great Depression and things could totally fucking be awful.
Preparing for phase jump.
Like, yeah, there's not like a guarantee that this is going to go well. Yeah, there's no guarantee that this goes well.
Our cannon is itching for a target.
Total shift in the way that we've done economic policy in the United States of America, but it was necessary. So, yeah, we're going to cut your taxes. You're going to have more money in your pocket, and that's, of course, going to help you deal with the cost of inflation.
The greatest
but that's not about offsetting the tariffs.
The best
they work together. We want to penalize people for shipping our jobs overseas. We want to reward hardworking Americans. It's all.
And I think this is something that people want to do. They want to see the, oligarchs who are, shutting down and shipping factories and jobs overseas. They want to see the government fuck them. Just straight up. That's what it is. They want to see it. And they will. That's why they voted for Trump. And he's fucking them.
Part of the same policy.
I want to get to some other news because there were some reports that came out that Elon Musk is leaving. Now, of course, the president had already said he was only going to be here for a temporary basis.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Doge will continue after Elon Musk. Will he still be an advisor to you and the president? I know y'all have a great relationship. Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, that report I saw was total fake news. Elon came in and we said, we need you to make government more efficient. We need you to shrink the incredible, vast bureaucracy that thwarts the will of the American people, but also costs way too much money. And we said that's going to take about 6 months. And that's what Elon signed up for. But of course, he's going to continue to be an advisor. And by the way, the work of Doge is not even close to done. The work of Elon is not even close to done. You look at all of the fraudulent grants that they found. You look at people who are 150 years old, who are fraudulently collecting Social Security payments. You see our Social Security system, 40% of the people who are calling in are actually committing fraud. That means the 60% who need their Social Security checks are waiting in line. Doge has got a lot of work to do. And yeah,
I think it does. I mean, absolutely. It's going to take forever. Do you think the working class benefits from the rich losing money on the stock market besides getting vengeance? The rich drive a lot of consumption that creates jobs.
Civilian structure complete.
If the rich drive all of this consumption and all of this economic progress that creates jobs, then why is it that people feel like they can't afford anything now and they could 20 years ago? Why do people feel like their purchasing power and their ability to have financial stability has gone down? It's because that's not happening. Why would you take this at face value? The administration is not known for integrity or intellectual honesty. I mean, do I really need to get a source for the idea that the federal government is probably corrupt and full of people that are stupid? This has been a known entity for 50 years. I don't need a source for this. Everybody knows it. It's obvious. I worked at the federal government. I saw it myself.
Work's going to continue after Elon leaves, but fundamentally, Elon is going to remain a friend and an advisor of both me and the president, and he's done a lot of good things. People don't realize how vast and uncontrolled the bureaucracy was. We've started to chip away at it, but there's a lot of work to do. It's not going to happen all in 6 months. It's going to take a long and committed effort.
Tell us about the news when it comes to TikTok. It looks like the president is going to announce maybe today some proposal. Maybe America owns 50% of TikTok. A private investor will own the other part. Is that going to happen today?
So I don't want to get ahead of any presidential announcements here, but what I've said is we've been working very hard, me and the president, the entire team, to really accomplish two things. First of all, you want to make sure that the TikTok app in the United States is not spying on people.
Right.
It's good for national security. You also want to give people access to this incredible platform, which, as we know, that's where a lot of young people get their news. That's where a lot of young people found out about the policies of the Trump administration. And we got to accomplish both of those things. I think that we're in a good place. We're going to keep on working at it, but I'll let the president make that announcement.
If it doesn't come out before the deadline, because I know the president extended.
It'll come out before the deadline.
It will come out.
We had a couple days to continue working on it to finalize it.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably come out. I mean, I don't think they're going to get rid of TikTok, right? Like, I mean, I really don't think so. Yeah, do you think Doge is firing only problematic, lazy people? They fired even Republicans, and yet Doge haven't had any real time to measure how useless they are? No, but if you're making the argument that there are chances where mistakes can happen, I think that you're right. Like, every single jail probably has people that are in that jail that shouldn't be in the jail. Like, you know, they got falsely imprisoned for one reason or another. But just because somebody is, just because there are bad outcomes doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything.
And of course, we're going to let the president announce whatever we ultimately decide.
Let's talk about some of the lawfare in this country, because I think it's important.
Of course.
We're seeing judges block illegal immigrants that came into the country illegally. That was the first crime. And then the second crime, they victimized American citizens, murder, rapists, and all that. What's going to be done about this? We're seeing these one-off stories of, you know, this person was a great father, and then they're hanging around with MS-13.
Yeah,
so,
well, this is the reason why you don't have. So the reason why the average population doesn't give a shit about, you know, illegal immigrants being deported and even if like, you know, there are some people that are like negatively affected or like, you know, some due process isn't really being used. This is the messaging that I think that they should use in order to explain it. Basically, the reason why they're taking an extreme stance is that the situation that was created by not like kind of securing the border and letting all of these people come in, this created a problem that they can't solve with due process, basically. And so they're not using it. That's what's going on. Is that basically the problem was created and you can't uncreate this problem unless you do something that doesn't use due process. Problem by what metric? By the metric of having 10 to 20 million illegal immigrants. And that's the reason why the messaging for, oh, but they're not listening to the judge. Well, if the rule of law is something that should be applied all the time, then why didn't they apply the rule of law when these people came in? Why are they even here in the first place? Well, you've created this situation that now it's so bad, you have them trying to do something different. And like they are probably breaking the rules and not following the judge's orders, etc. But the situation was created by breaking the rules and not following orders either. Things like sanctuary cities, for example. So that's the reason, yeah, they broke the law by letting these people in. Exactly. And that's why you have the majority of people that still support the deportations and mass deportations. That's the reason why. Two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah, they do. That's absolutely. They do in this case? Yep, in this case it does. And again, I don't necessarily think that this is the best way of doing it, but if you can't understand what I'm explaining, I don't know what to tell you. Allowing a wrong to continue is still wrong? Yeah. Well, that's a crazy take. Oh. Do you guys think that I'm right about my viewpoint on this? This is top-level brain rot? No, it's not. Is that you have ignored the rules, you have stopped listening to what the border and immigration policy is, you have created this extreme circumstance that is cataclysmic and problematic for a lot of people, or at least the perception of it is that it is cataclysmic and problematic. And now, in order to solve the problem, you expect people to follow every single rule that you conveniently ignored in order to create the problem. And you're confused why people don't want to hold them to that standard. Well, it's because you didn't hold yourself to that standard. It's the same reason why nobody cares about Trump being a convicted felon. Trump's a 34x convicted felon. How many? That's insane, right? How do you do it? And I bet a few of them are probably legit. I think he probably did. I think he probably fucked over tons of people. Absolutely. Probably a piece of shit. But the thing is that when Hunter Biden isn't in jail, the average person is not going to give a fuck about what Trump did. You can't watch Hunter Biden playing Grand Theft Auto in real life, smoking crack, driving 150 miles an hour, and see this guy isn't in jail, and then expect people to care about like some white-collar bullshit with Donald Trump. Which one's worse, smoking crack and driving under the influence of crack, or some weird, like, tax reporting? Which one do you think average people care about more? He left us, yeah, the laptop? Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, that's it. And why Hunter isn't president? Yeah, but the person who is the reason why he's not in jail. So it's the same thing. If Hunter Biden was a non-white person that came from a working class background, where would Hunter Biden be? Everybody knows the answer to this. He'd be in jail. Everybody knows it.
It's going to be done. The courts are blocking this right now. So this,
again, my point is that this is the reason why a lot of people don't give a shit about, like, Donald Trump ignoring these judges. Is because the problem was created by ignoring the law. And so solving the problem by ignoring the law is viewed as equivalent exchange. That's the reason why.
Now, the executive branch, what are you guys going to do about it?
Well, look, we're going to keep on appealing, and we're going to keep on fighting back here. First of all, we have to remember the most important thing is to stop the bleeding, to stop
Somebody says it's not right to do that.
Logistics upgrade complete.
It wasn't right to let them all in either. And so when people said it's not right to let these people in, and then you said, too bad, but now you say it's not right to get these people out, and then somebody else says too bad, oh. That's it. You're very close-minded. Your take only matters. Do you want to know the truth? I don't blame any of the illegal immigrants. Do you know who I really want to send to El Salvador? The people who run the companies who employed them knowingly. And if it was up to me, that's what would happen. That's what I think. If you want to talk about fair, that's what I would do. So I'm explaining the way that people look at this. I don't necessarily agree with it in all circumstances.
Influx of massive illegal immigration into the country, and in 2 months, the president has already done that. You have illegal border crossings down over 95% in pretty much every part of the American southern border. Then, yeah, we got to get the violent criminals out of here, and we've got to get illegal immigrants who came in during the Biden administration out of our country. That's what we're working on now. You're right. The courts, some radical left judges have stepped in and said you're not allowed to deport MS-13 gang members. That's crazy. We think the Supreme Court's going to overrule it, and we're going to keep on fighting for the president's prerogative.
Well, they're going to do it even if the Supreme Court says that they can't do it. Like, I'm just going to tell you right now, Trump doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to do it anyway. So, like, that's it. Yeah, they're screwed. Yeah, exactly. Kind of dangerous. Yeah. It was also kind of dangerous letting them in. Exactly. See, now you're starting to get it. It's a dictator time. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. And people will not care.
Civilian structure complete.
To enforce the law. Lord, you have to remember the number of people who came in here, the innocent American, girls like Jocelyn Nungray who lost their lives. Democrats never wept for them. Democrats never issued a congressional resolution of condemnation for their murder. Democrats didn't do anything to make it harder for violent thugs to come into our country and prey on innocent young women. What they're getting fired up about, what they're most angry about, is not that Jocelyn Nungray was murdered, but that the person who murdered her is getting shipped back home where they belong, not in the United States of America.
And I think this is the correct emotional framing of this problem, and I think that it is. This is the winning framing. Is that why are you focusing on an illegal gang member being deported and not the person who is the victim of this crime? And this is the big thing that I think liberals have really kind of like lost the message war with. Is that I think that liberals for a very long time, what their strongest and like biggest tool is emotional manipulation and emotional blackmail. Oh, won't somebody think about these poor kids or think about this, like preying on people's emotions one way or another. If you can subvert that and then shift it around to them, it breaks down their entire argumentation. The truth, you mean? Well, it depends on the perspective, right? It does. It depends on the perspective. But what I'm saying is that they're basically like Republicans in a lot of cases have not been playing these emotional like identity politics rhetoric games. And now that they are, because like honestly, Trump is an extremely good communicator, and he's been in entertainment for a very long time, and so he knows how to manipulate and communicate with people better than almost anybody else does, and I think J.D. Vance does too. And so Orange Man Bat, no, he does. Like whether you think that like that's why he has these rallies and everybody loves him, people are wearing his hat all the time. Like, and is it really like even if you think Trump is a dictator? Yeah, well, people loved Stalin and they liked Lenin and they liked Saddam Hussein even. Like a lot of people did. The entire, they liked Hitler. I mean, the whole idea is like, if you are one of these like dictators and really powerful people, almost every single one of them is extremely charismatic and extremely easy to follow. right? Even like the guys from like the terrorist organizations, like that Nasrallah, Hassan Nasrallah. He's very well spoken. He's very well spoken. He's a great communicator. And if you can't acknowledge that, you're denying reality. And that's, yeah, people are stupid. Yeah, they are. And so that's, I think, what's going on. Trump exposed the widespread corruption with Doge and ICE, yet no government official has been held accountable. I agree with you. I think it's a huge problem. But my point is that they've lost this emotional messaging war because of this shift of communications.
I think it shows a disgraceful set of priorities from congressional Democrats. We're not going to let that stand in our way. We're going to keep on doing the American people's work.
Mr. Vice President, can I get you to put your lawyer hat on for a second? Because they're pointing to one of these cases of a gentleman that they said should not have been deported from El Salvador. They said he was not connected to MS-13. What would you tell them about that case? Because they're saying that
this is a great opportunity because a lot of people have been saying this.
This is a person that was a great member of society. You've looked at the court records. You've talked to the men and women on the ground. What can you tell us about that situation?
Well, there have been a few cases out there where the Democrats and the media say, oh, this person was just an innocent father of three, and then you find out, for example, I think this is the case that you're talking about. Back in 2019, an immigration judge looked at all the evidence, looked at all the data, and concluded that this allegedly innocent person that we sent to El Salvador was actually a member of an MS-13 gang. He had also committed some traffic violations. He had not shown up for some court dates. This is not exactly Father of the Year here. This is
exactly traffic violations. Well, I want you to think about it like this. What happens when you send illegal immigrants to El Salvador for traffic violations? I'll tell you what's going to happen. The illegal immigrants here are going to stop violating the traffic regulations, and less people are going to come over. You go to Singapore, you don't see a lot of people littering, do you? Yeah, send a message? Yeah, it sends a message, and it's brutal. It's brutal, and you could say that it's morally wrong even. But it works.
A person that we don't think should be in our country. Here's the most important point, though, Lawrence, is whatever the argument is, whatever the justification is, no one doubts. Not even the crazy left-wing media criticized the idea that we could deport this person. They just took issue with the reasoning for why we deported this person. This was unquestionably an illegal alien. This was unquestionably a person who broke the laws to get into our country. This is unquestionably a person, an immigration judge.
It's again, like, what do you think other people that are going to immigrate illegally to America and come into America illegally are thinking? Do you think that the risk of being sent to CCOD in El Salvador is going to decrease the amount of people coming over? Because I think it absolutely will. It 100% will. Yeah, it sets an example, of course.
Had found had zero right to be in the United States of America. We do not ask permission.
Absolutely, it's horrifying. It is. And I think that people don't understand this about, this is one thing about Trump is that, this might sound crazy, I think Trump is a genuine fucking psychopath. I do. I think he is a 100% psychopath, and he would do this stuff without a second of hesitation. Mafia tactics? Yes.
Shields are down.
It's scary. Yes, exactly. And yeah, agreed. Exactly. It's unpredictable. Best of him. Yes, he's very, very, very good at doing this. And so to think that like they are gonna put like, oh, they're gonna put that past him, he absolutely would do it.
From far left Democrats before we deport illegal immigrants. We do the American people's business. And again, for the American people who are watching, this is such a weird, mistaken placement of priorities. We need to make our country.
I agree with him, by the way. I think it's very annoying to me that when a person who's like a known supporter of a terrorist organization is getting deported, you're having protests for them trying. It's like basically it's a race to the bottom to find the most morally reprehensible person and then defend them as hard as you can.
Armor down. We're taking
stronger. We need to create jobs. We need to make our streets safer. What is it about congressional Democrats that get more angry at deporting violent gang members than they do at the victims of those violent gang members? I don't even understand where they're coming from. They've gone off the deep end and they got to come back to reality.
I think it goes to the larger point, though, about the lawfare happening right now. It's not just the immigration cases, but pretty much everything that the executive is doing right now has been challenged in these lower courts.
Sure.
Is there a way to expedite this straight to the Supreme Court? Or do we legally have to let lower courts, make these decisions?
Yeah.
It goes to the appeal courts and finally it goes to the Supreme Court. People are saying the 4 years.
It doesn't have to go to a court at all. I mean, what happens if Trump just does it anyway? Because that's what he's going to do.
We're going down.
Even if the courts say he's not going to do it, he's going to do it anyway, and he has been.
Good day.
Like, am I crazy for thinking that the entire logic of the plane was outside of U.S. jurisdiction or outside of the United States boundary, which means that they couldn't turn the plane around? That's total bullshit. That's total bullshit. Like, what rule? How does any rule work like that? But he just did it anyway. It didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't fucking matter. It was an obvious setup. Yeah, guys, these deportations are a big show. Totally crap.
We're crippled.
I think that the show of the deportations is good for sending a message for people that would potentially come over, because if they see that a bunch of people are getting deported and sent to these super jails, they would probably be less likely to come over.
To be up by then.
Well, there are a lot of things that we can do, not just appeals. We can limit the jurisdiction of certain courts. Even when certain courts make a ruling, say that you're not allowed to deport a person for a certain reason, we can still deport that person for another reason. So it's not like deportations have stopped. But yes, the radical courts are a problem. But our view here is we knew we were going to have this fight. We were prepared for it. We're going to litigate it all the way to the Supreme Court. We think that we're going to win. And when we do win, that will end this question permanently. Think about this. The Democrats, they're spending so many resources fighting the deportation of gang members. You have to ask, where are their priorities? But
I think this is absolutely true. They've totally lost the messaging with this, where the focus is always around, defending, illegal, gang member migrants. If you're finding yourself on their side, you're making a mistake.
We're in a tough spot.
Knew they were going to do this. We're prepared for it, Lawrence, and we're going to fight all the way to the top of the courts.
Mr. Vice President, I think about your life story. Very similar to mine as well, growing up with nothing, and now you're the Vice President of the United States.
It's a great country, man.
It is a great country. We're almost to the 100-day mark.
Yep.
We know the President's been strong on the border. We've seen almost operational control of the border at this point. We've seen the waste, fraud, and abuse being brought to light. How would you rate this first 100 days?
Man, I think the president has done more in 100 days than almost any administration has done in 8 years. And I really think that when you consider the southern border, which was the biggest crisis that we got elected to solve, 2 months in, border crossings are almost at zero when it comes to illegal border crossings. When I think just about where I grew up, the factory closures, the fact that friends of mine were getting their parents laid off. I talked to a lot of people who couldn't afford a home on the campaign trail. I talked to women who were worried about.
These are all the people that don't give a shit about the stock market, by the way.
We're going down.
These are all the people that could give less of a fuck that BlackRock's portfolio went down 3%.
Price of a dozen eggs. We're making steady progress on all those issues. Yes, it doesn't happen overnight, but when you look at the hundreds of billions of dollars in new investment coming into our country, auto plants that were planned to close that are now adding shifts as opposed to closing, egg prices that are way down, gasoline prices that are way down. We're making a lot of progress, but there's still a lot left to do, and I know the president is laser focused on it, so am I.
You have become almost the fighter-in-chief. The president sends out a message, and he puts it in bullet points for the American people, and then you go on the Sunday shows and you duke it out with them. Sometimes you duke it out with world leaders in the Oval Office as well. And there's a lot of people saying about the mantle of MAGA, what happens after these 4 years. I guess this is my final question to you. Do you run for president after this?
Oh.
Do you? I know
He's not going to give an answer.
You're going to tell me you're going to focus
Yeah.
on being vice president right
Yeah,
now.
that's
But
exactly what I was
people
gonna
are
say.
wondering if we can accomplish all of this in 4 years, and they want some security in that. Is JD the man to continue the MAGA agenda?
Well, look, man, I really am just not focused on politics. I'm not focused on the midterm elections in 2026, much less the presidential election in 2028. When we get to that point, I'll talk to the president. We'll figure out what we want to do. But the way that I think about it is if we do a good job, the politics take care of themselves. I just want...
I think that's true. Yeah, I think as long as people feel like they're in a better spot at the end of Trump's term, they'll vote for whoever is going to continue that.
Need some backup.
Like, yeah, deliver